we are going to welcome in Daniel Cheung, who is a CPA over at Aviation Tax Consultants, talking all about some write-offs. Tax season is, if you can believe it, like right around the corner, it feels like. And we're going to get into a little bit of conversation about what that means for you coming out to the end of the year. Daniel, thank you for joining us today on Business Air TV.
You guys.
We're doing pretty good. Let's dig right into it. So we are coming up on the end of the year. Maybe you invest in an aircraft this year. Maybe you've got some assets that you decided to add to your portfolio. What should you be doing if you decided to make that investment to get yourself prepared for 2022 tax season?
Yeah, this is really our tax season or busy season in our industry. Year-end purchase, very common. We probably work very, very hard up till December 31st, quite literally. The reason is with the tax law that is applicable right now, 100% bonus depreciation, it has driven a lot of new entrants into our industry, both because they need reliable travel, because of COVID, because of health reasons. They may not want to deal with the airline travel anymore. And a lot of business owners, they certainly just need tax deductions because a lot of folks are doing very well business-wise, and an airplane purchase can generate immediate tax deductions. The key right now, the discussion, even though we're only early in November, but this discussion is already, hey, can you get a plane purchased, closed, and what we call place it in service before year end? That's the key. In our industry, the supply and demand has been pretty crazy last couple of years, as we know. If there's a plane in Europe that you're trying to buy, well, you better make sure your broker and everybody involved can get the plane back in the U.S. so that you can place the airplane in service to capture those tax benefits. And there are certainly a few other rules and regulations we need to address in terms of planning. But if you have a business reason, business justification to buy an airplane for business travels, the tax benefits certainly are readily available.
So walk us through that process when somebody is purchasing the asset. They have to place it in service. Are they engaging their tax consultant? How far in advance are they engaging their tax consultant before they actually close that service?
We always say we'd like at least 2 or 3 weeks to get our work done. Our work is, I'm a CPA by trade, and every one of my clients has their own CPA that deal with their tax filings and compliance. Our role is strictly aviation. So most of the time, they will bring us on as a specialist to advise on all the airplane issues. It is not uncommon to get a call today on the Thursday, and they say, hey, we are trying to close an airplane on Monday. Can we get it done? It can be, depending on the stakes involved and whether there's financing involved, a lot of different factors. But in terms of effectively doing our planning and structuring recommendations, we certainly like to have 2 or 3 weeks before. But even December 26th, 27th, we will get calls to try to say, hey, we try to close a plane before December 31st. So that's not uncommon.
So, Daniel, you mentioned the 100% business depreciation right now. Can you talk us through a little bit about what that means, how it exists in this kind of scope of the market, and if we're anticipating that to change going forward?
Yeah. Since 2017 now, the tax law changed to allow 100% what we call bonus depreciation. The term bonus may be a little misleading because we're not actually getting anything additional or in bonus per se. If you spend $1 million in an airplane, you can depreciate $1 million. What the 100% bonus depreciation allow taxpayers to do is to deduct the whole $1 million immediately in the year of acquisition. Traditionally, you have to depreciate an airplane over 5 or 6 or 7 years, for example. But with the tax law change in 2017, you can immediately write off the airplane in the year of acquisition. So even in a late year situation like right now, you can potentially buy an airplane, place it in service, and write off the full purchase price immediately, which will generate significant income tax savings to pretty much all the business owners who has the income to absorb the deduction. We look at tax rate, let's just say marginal tax rate at about 40%. So for every dollar you write off the airplane, you save yourself 40 cents on the dollar. So there's an immediate tax savings available. And because, in late December closing, you may only need 1 or 2 or 3 business flights to justify the purchase, and you can capture that immediate deduction. So that's what is driving a lot of the acquisition or even the new buyers, first-time buyer in our industry. The tax code is scheduled to change to 80% bonus depreciation. What that only means is instead of writing off the whole 100% of the purchase price in 2023, we can only write off 80%. But the remaining 20% is not lost. It will still be depreciated over time in the next 5 years, for example. There are different tax provisions actually specifically to aircraft. A new airplane purchase in 2023 may actually still qualify for 100% bonus depreciation. So there's some details behind the planning and deposit requirement and so forth. But the tax law is changing to 80%, but for airplane, there's actually some special provision that can potentially allow 100% write-off even in 2023.
So next year, we're going to go to 80%. After that, it's going to go to 60 to 40 to 20. Do you think that that's going to influence the market from a pricing standpoint as we look at people that want to depreciate that full asset value this year? It makes a lot of sense that they have gains. Now they have to think I might have to have 5 years of gains to be able to write this asset off.
Yeah. I mean, the general aviation market last couple of years, again, the supply and demand is kind of out of whack. A lot of demand, so the pricing has been, is very good. Even used airplane can be sold for a profit, which is almost unheard of in our industry in years past. Now, whether the market will change, there's talk of recession, or there may be already been a recession right now, but the pricing has been pretty firm. I'm not a very good predictor. Some of our airplane broker friends out there may have a lot more data to support in terms of what the pricing or the market will be looking like in 2023. But I can certainly still see a pretty good market in terms of maybe because there's only so many airplanes built, so many airplanes being sold available. So, and I can still see a lot of demands. The tax benefit certainly is a driving factor to a lot of our clients, but it's not really the only factor. Just to be able to get your managers or salespeople to meetings timely, efficiently, not stuck in the airline and getting flight cancellation. All those play into why there's such a huge demand. So, but the tax benefits certainly help. There's no question about that.
So there's a depreciation factor when you make the actual purchase of the acquisition. Can you walk us through all of the other expenses and how that works from a tax standpoint? What do I need to do hourly? Is my maintenance program a tax deduction? Can I prepay on my maintenance in order to save some sort of taxes when it comes to, my expenses from this year as opposed to deferring them into next year? Walk us through the rest of the possible advantages to having a private aircraft, not outside of just the depreciation of the asset.
Yeah, deductibility of airplane expenses really follow the usage of the airplane. There is always an ongoing 50% minimum business use requirement to maintain bonus depreciation and avoid what we call a recapture to pay back the deductions. But in terms of expenses, we look at the flight log on an annual basis, determine what percentage is deductible. Most of our clients will have some personal use invariably, vacations or whatnot, a fun trip or entertaining clients and so forth. So, for example, if you have 90% business use, you will write off 90% of all your operating expenses, including maintenance costs, pilot, hangar rental, and everything else. So there's a big bucket of airplane expenses that will be allocated based on the flight usage of each client. So if we maintain 100% business use, you absolutely can write off 100% of every dollar spent. Depending on the accounting system and some of the details to each taxpayer's prepaid maintenance can be deductible immediately, especially for cash basis taxpayer. But it's not kind of one-size-fits-all type discussion. So every taxpayer, that situation may be slightly different. If you're just putting money away in the savings account for a reserve, that's not a deduction, for example. But if you do pay a maintenance program, an outside third-party vendor, typically there's a deduction available.
Very interesting. Well, this has been super helpful, Daniel. If somebody wants to find out more information about how they might be able to depreciate their asset or just engage with you to get some more helpful insight, where can they find you?
Yeah, our website is aviationtaxconsultants.com on the web, and we have a lot of articles, some interviews in the past that we have done. So there are a lot of pretty good information on there, but they are certainly welcome to call us at the office. We have two offices, one here in Scottsdale and one in Columbus, Indiana. So we have folks around the country. We're very busy, but we're always ready for new clients and at least have a discussion. Sometimes the answer may be no, because if you don't have a good business structure or justification, maybe writing up an airplane is not right for you. But we certainly are available to provide that answer and at least getting some good information out there, which is, I think, is always the most important part. It's not just about, just because you have income, for example, doesn't mean you should write up an airplane. So there are other factors involved in the decision and the planning.
All right, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. We will talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Kaylee.